Of the season, but if it is truly like it was just a bad start, the team couldn't hit a shot, the defense, the pieces didn't fit, but they figure it out over the course of a season, I think that Doc will probably finish the year, and it's kind of, my thing is like, there's kind of only two buttons left to push if you're the Sixers. One is fire Doc Rivers, and one is trade Tobias Harris.
I didn't say trade Maxey.
No, I well, it depends. Who are you getting back? Because I personally am so invested in, Maxey better sadly here, that I think that if you're trading Tyrese Maxey, it has to be for an all NBA level player. And the reason I say that is because that's really your last move. Like, because if you miss on that, and then Maxey goes on to be a multiple time All-Star, and he's still on his rookie contract for this year and next year, and you're moving on from him, and you're not getting back a Jimmy Butler or Kevin Durant or someone that is like a top 15, top 20 player. Like, there were debates whether we should trade him for Donovan Mitchell over the summer. And I was like, look, if Tyrese Maxey has the same career as Donovan Mitchell, then that's a massive one. He hit his 100th percentile. Like, he hit the highest end possible outcome for him. I didn't think that the Mitchell Embiid Harden fit was good enough to really justify trading Maxey for him. I also don't think the Jazz were really interested in getting Tyrese Maxey. I think they wanted picks. But I remember having arguments, and I'm the number one Maxey guy, being like, he'll probably never be as good as Donovan Mitchell, and I'm fine with never trading him for Donovan Mitchell. I would not be fine if we got to the point where it's like, all right, we clearly need something to happen here, and there's a top 20 player who I view as a good fit with those two, with Harden and Embiid, and then they're passing on that, then I would be like, okay, what are we doing here really? Because like, we have to optimize the last years of Harden. We have to optimize the prime of Joel Embiid, because if all of those things, those last three things, trading Tobias Maxey and firing Doc, don't work, then you just have to admit Joel Embiid and James Harden just aren't good enough to win a championship. So that's kind of where the crossroads is going to be over this next year or two. And we'll see. I don't think they're going to speed up the process unless this year's truly a disaster. But if things really go off the rails, I think they'll be trying to make every move that they possibly can, because I think this is an extremely crucial year for the Sixers.
Yeah, and I also just wonder, just the thing with Maxey, it's not really his fault, but his usage is, I think, last I saw, was 22% right now.
Yeah.
And like you said, this was something the Hawks were going through as well, where Cam Reddish or DeAndre Hunter or whoever it was, with Trey's usage, there was just a really difficult path to maximizing any of these high picks around Trey. And I mean, the Mavs figured that out, and they're like, yeah, we're moving on. Like, we're going vets only around Luka Doncic, because like, he's just, the oxygen is just so much when you have that kind of high usage guard that, I mean, I don't know if you've watched any of the Hawks yet this year, but it's a little clunky. Trey's not shooting the ball well. DeAndre Hunter is not going to be a star. Cam Reddish is out the door. John Collins obviously not going to get the looks. Onyeka Okongwu is not getting the looks, and you have Capella blocking him. It's hard, I think, for fans to see, like, where I think with Maxey, I just wonder, where is the path to him getting the usage necessary to become, like you said, the 100 percentile with Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
I don't think there's a path on this roster over the next couple of years, and these years are so critical for a young player to either become that guy, or they're 25 and it's over and they're just a role player from here on out. So you're kind of, it's very, very difficult for teams to tote that line with players like Maxey, because, I mean, you want to give him every opportunity to be a star, but it's also like, okay, you want to have the conversation with James Harden or Joel Embiid saying that your usage is going down and we really have to make sure that Maxey's a third star? No, it's not happening. So I don't know. I just struggle trying to figure out what a team like the Sixers should do with Maxey, because you have that upside, but it's also like, I don't see the path to him getting to that 100 percentile because he's blocked a little bit.
So 3 things with this. The first thing is that the difference between Cam Reddish and all those guys that you named, while, John Collins may be a little bit different, he's a really good off-ball player. Maxey's one of the best off-ball players in the NBA, and it's not really discussed that much. Like the creative ways, and this might actually go back to Doc Rivers, and maybe a little bit goes back to James Harden and Joel Embiid as well, because they need to make it a priority to make sure that he's involved. Because anytime you have any sort of heliocentric star, whether it's the Trae Youngs or the James Hardens, there's going to be a little bit of, okay, so we just stand around and wait for this guy to cook and, hope to hit an open three or whatever. But last year, when they first got Maxey, they were using him really creatively off the ball. And so far, they have not used him creatively off the ball at all. Even honestly, one of the ways that there were two different ways that they did it last year. One, they would set Maxey up in the corner. And anytime that Harden's defender started to cheat off of Maxey, he would hit Maxey with a pass, and Maxey is just like a speeding bullet. So he got downhill immediately and was able to either generate an advantage for himself, get to the hoop, or generate an advantage for whoever was in the paint, Joel Embiid or Paul Reed or whoever, and just dump it off to them. And then the other thing that they would do is they would let him set up the offense sometimes. So he was kind of used as like a little bit of a distraction to get other guys into their spots. And they would have him move a ton off the ball when he didn't have the ball. So they would run him off screens. They would do little, Iverson cuts that they were doing for him and Seth Curry last year to get them involved when they did not have the ball. And that was a way to keep them kind of active. But this year it's been a lot of let's put Maxey in the corner. And I honestly, part of it is James Harden, being as kind of back to where he was before. Maybe not Houston James Harden, but kind of like a version of the Brooklyn Nets Harden we saw at first. And I think that you can't use Tyrese Maxey like he's Danny Green. You just can't let him sit in a corner the whole game. So the real next steps in his development will be when James Harden is on the bench, because the last few games we've just been running those Embiid Maxey lineups. And honestly, Maxey has not taken advantage of them. Maxey himself has to be called on to be aggressive. It didn't really happen until the end of the Boston game. It didn't happen until the end of the Pacers game last night, and he couldn't buy a bucket. So ultimately, this kind of comes down to how aggressive Tyrese Maxey wants to be when he has the ball, and how much better will he get as a passer, because as good as he is at scoring, as good as he is at moving off the ball, as good as he is at shooting, as good as he is at everything that he's good at, he's still not advanced as a passer at all. So the development thing kind of comes down to the coaching staff, Harden, and Maxey himself really kind of learning more advanced reads, because when he has the ball, sure, we can take the ball out of James Harden's hands, but at the same time, James Harden is the best decision maker on the team. I joked last night on Twitter. I said, if it weren't for Harden, this might be the dumbest team in NBA history. The amount of horrible passes, the amount of stupid fouls, the amount of just boneheaded decisions. Last night, George Niang and Paul Reed were fighting with each other for a rebound, and they were jostling back and forth, not realizing that they were on the same team. Niang drops the ball. Duarte picks it up, hits a mid-ranger. I'm like, these kind of things that happen are why James Harden always has the ball. Joel Embiid is turning the ball over a ton when he touches it. He's been inefficient to start the year. He's kind of bounced back a little bit on offense over the last two games. But until Maxey gets to the point where he is that high level advantage creator for himself and others, I think that you just need to kind of try to optimize him as much off the ball as possible and have him work off of Harden and Embiid until he gets there, because he's not going to get there. He's not going to get there just force feeding him reps on the ball, because the advancement with passing stuff, you got to work on that in the offseason. You got to work on that in practice. You got to be prepared for all that. And then once you are up to a certain level, then I think you deserve more of the primary creator reps that I don't think right now he's ready for. I think he's still at best a secondary creator, attacking defenses when they're on a slant, off the ball when he's able to get and go in transition, but he still kind of has a long way to go as a on-ball primary creator that can lead an offense.
So there you have it, TBD. Tyrese Maxey, he sucks.
No, he's better, sadly. I still have all of my Tyrese Maxey stock, and I will never let it go. I'm telling you, over the offseason, I was digging up stats from Maxey's second season, and I'm not saying he is these players at all. I think they're very different.
Michael
players.
Jordan, Kobe Bryant.
Yes. But I'm not saying that he's these players at all because they're all very different players in different ways. But if you compared Maxey's age 21 season stats to guys at the same age as him, it was like Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, Jamal Murray. So while he is a very different player and all of those guys are probably more primary on-ball type creators, I think Maxey has potential to be one of the best second or third options in the NBA. And it's really up to him, the coaching staff, Harden and Embiid, to figure out how we can optimize him the best, how we did at the end of last year, which made the offense at the end of the regular season and in 3 or 4 of those Toronto games just absolutely unstoppable.
What has been one common thread through each Sixers game that you've jotted down? What is one thing that you have found is consistent with every game so far?
You want to go negative or positive?
Let's go negative. You're too the Maxey stuff is too glowing. Like we gotta. People love the negative. People love to harp on the negative.
All my biggest podcast. Like I just had my biggest episode, and it was literally is Doc Rivers on the hot seat. Like that's
people love that.
Stuff. They love it. They eat it up.
Mm-hmm.
So negatively, so I talked about the transition defense.